The milk. Gavalaha, whose mouth pools. Smell. Indeed, thus the hood stood still. Govindam, Lord Krishna, Atmani, within their minds. Drisha, with their vision. Ashrikalaha, their eyes full of tears. Sprishantiha, touching. Translation. Listen very carefully, this is a very wonderful verse. Using their upraised ears as vessels, the cows are drinking the nectar of the flute song flowing out of Krishna's mouth. The calves, their mouths full of milk from their mother's moist nipples, stand still as they take Govinda within themselves through their tear-filled eyes and embrace him within their hearts. Please repeat. Using their upraised ears as vessels, the cows are drinking the nectar of the flute song flowing out of Krishna's mouth. The calves, their mouths full of milk from their mother's moist nipples, stand still as they take Govinda within themselves through their tear-filled eyes and embrace him within their hearts. Sometimes it's better not to do the translation so you can fully appreciate what the verse is, because the Sanskrit verse is most beautiful and the translation is very beautiful too, but not like similar. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpataruyascha Kripa Sindhuvyacha Patitanam Pavanivya Vaishnavya Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Please forgive my offenses and please give me your blessing so that something can come out that is of benefit to everyone. I feel that something very important about classes is that they have to be beneficial, not only entertaining or instructive, but they have to be beneficial, something that we can actually apply at some level. Of course, we're dealing with very, very esoteric verses, very esoteric pastimes, way beyond the reach of human understanding within this material confine. But it is good to hear these verses. It is good to read, very good to read these stories about Sri Krishna and his devotees. And everywhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam is stated that it is this process of hearing and chanting is what's going to give us purification. And we know that we're here because of the necessity to become purified. And so we're following some practices basically to become purified with the goal of eventually, sometime in the future, whenever that future comes, to be able to have the most intimate, loving relationship with the Supreme Lord and with Srimati Radharani. Now, why are we chanting rounds? Why are we coming to see the deities? Why are we listening to classes? Why are we reading with friends? Why are we doing services in the temple? Because we need to clean the heart. And unless the heart is cleaned, it is not very possible to understand higher principles and higher truths or experience higher emotions. One of the points that Srila Gurudev Krishna Maharaj made yesterday was that we cannot equate the spiritual emotions with the material emotions. And all of these things, all of these verses and all of these discussions we are listening to elicit certain emotions in our hearts. And they are not necessarily spiritual emotions, they are material emotions. So when we hear something that brings an emotion out of our consciousness, chances are that it's going to be a material emotion. And of course, we can get a glimpse of understanding through this material emotion of what the spiritual emotion might be, even though they're very, very different. Because for the material emotion, the heart has to be thoroughly cleansed to be perceived. So it's very important to think that whatever I'm experiencing in the process of becoming purified is helping, but it may also hamper my development, may also get in the way. If I only establish that everything that I'm experiencing is exactly what is supposed to be experienced in spiritual life, because we're not there yet. Most of us, many of us are not there yet. So that's a very important point to remember. Another point that is very important to remember is when we hear all these activities and these unusual reactions in emotions, etc., we have to realize that I lost it. So I'll come back. In any case, so we have to remember that point and do the best we can with hearing and chanting while we are in these material bodies, and try to hear as much as possible, chant as much as possible. Remember, the Lord Chaitanya came to give us the process of hearing and chanting the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, as the foolproof way of becoming purified. And the more we chant, the better it is. The chanting has to be done with full absorption, ideally, with full concentration. It's not just an activity that we can do while we're sweeping the floor. It has to be something done very thoughtfully, because it is a meditation. And when we sit in meditation, we don't do 1,000 things, pick up the phone and talk to somebody. We focus, we concentrate our minds in the sound. And the sound vibration of Krishna's holy name, we know, is non-different from Krishna. This is the first contact, it is said in the scriptures, that we have with Krishna himself through his holy name, who is Krishna himself. So what's happened here? What's happened here in these verses is that now we're talking about the cows, and there is no purport. But the fact that there is no purport doesn't mean that there is nothing to be said. In fact, the acharyas are endlessly talking about all of these verses and all of these pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So what I'm going to read what Srila Prabhupada says in the Krishna book, there's a paragraph pertaining to this specific verse. And Srila Prabhupada says, let's see. I'll get it. Well, I had it marked. Yeah, well, wait a second. This chapter is about the the flute of Krishna. The title is The Gopis Attracted by the Flute. We know that the flute is not just attracting the gopis, it is attracting every living entity. And it is said here in the text, not in this text, in another text, that the flute goes all around, thank you, all around, everywhere, nooks and corners of all the creation. So do we have the eyes, so do we have the ears to hear? That's part of the process of purification. We may be able to hear the flute of Krishna again when the heart is thoroughly purified, because that sound is irresistible. And so when we hear the flute, sometimes we hear the flute in the form of a good class, or in the form of a good kirtan, when we see the deities beautifully dressed, like in this temple, they're always gorgeously dressed, or something very, very profound that somebody's saying. Those are vibrations of the flute of Krishna, something which actually is touching the heart, something which is enabling us to open our hearts to receive more and more, something which is so purifying that all we want to do is just follow that path. And it's all experience. So this paragraph reads, another gopi said to her friends, "My dear friends, the cows are also charmed as soon as they hear the transcendental sound of the flute of Krishna. It sounds to them like the pouring of nectar, and they immediately spread their long ears just to catch the liquid nectar of the flute. As for the calves, they are seen with the nipples of their mothers pressed in their mouths, but they cannot suck the milk. They are stunned. They remain struck with devotion, and tears glide down from their eyes, illustrating vividly how they are embracing Krishna heart to heart. These phenomena indicate that even the cows and calves in Vrindavan knew how to cry for Krishna and embrace him heart to heart. Actually, the perfection of Krishna consciousness can be culminated in the shedding of tears from the eyes. So we can learn from these animals, we can learn from the breeze, and we can learn from the rivers, and we can learn from the deer, and we can learn from even the wives of the demigods who are not qualified to have personal contact with the Supreme Lord, but they are actually witnessing all the pastimes as we read in previous verses. And here comes the lamentation of the gopis. Everybody can have contact, everybody can hear, everybody can have access, everybody can come close to the Supreme Lord except for us. The wives of the devatas, the demigods, are brought by their husbands up in the air, in their airplanes, to be able to witness the pastimes. The deer and the doe can come together to touch the Supreme Lord and to get really close and touch him. The cows and the calves are absorbed in meditation, are stunned, and they are taking the Supreme Lord in their hearts. Everything is available to everyone but to us, the gopis say. So this could be called the flute of the flute of Krishna, the song The Flute of Krishna, or it could be called the lamentation of the gopis, because this thread is going through the whole chapter. The gopis are lamenting. The gopis, the most beloved of the Supreme Lord. The reason for their existence is the love they have for the Supreme Lord. But the Lord is also reciprocating, maybe by making it a little difficult for them to get close to him, by giving them the opportunity to develop this intense desire to approach the Supreme Lord, to have an interaction with the Supreme Lord. And all of these pastimes are showing us how powerful is the love of the gopis for the Supreme Lord, and how powerful is the love of the Lord for the gopis, and for all the creatures, and for all of us. So I'm going to read some of the purports by different personalities in our line, starting with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because there's plenty to be said. One cannot say that the bewilderment from the flute is generated only from conjugal desire of the female only. See the example of the cows and their calves. Well, the cows are not in the conjugal mood, they are in the parental mood. The cows have these deep maternal feelings of love for the Supreme Lord. For fear of spilling the nectar. What is the nectar? It's the flute song, the melody, right? The cows have raised their ears like cups to hear the flute. There's not a moment to be wasted. This is so extraordinary that the cows are raising their ears like cups to drink from this nectar as much as possible. The cause of bewilderment is not just Vatsalya Bhav toward Krishna, or parental emotion, in this case maternal emotion. For their calves also, without this kind of bhav, were also bewildered. The calves who had just begun to drink their mother's milk, on hearing the flute, perked up their ears to drink that sound also. Not able to drink the udder milk, the milk fell from their open mouths, and they stood as if stunned. This is one of these emotions, that ecstatic emotions, to become stunned. There are 8 of them. The cows brought Govinda close with their glances, and through their eyes they had him enter their hearts. Touching him in their minds placed him on their laps out of this bhava of maternal emotion, Vatsalya. Then they became stunned. Out of bliss, tears fell from their eyes. Another one of these sadvika bhavas, these ecstatic emotions. In this way, all living entities had love of Krishna. Who is there who doesn't have love for Krishna? Even the worst criminal, deep inside, has the capacity to establish this relationship with the Supreme Lord, because that is what defines us. It defines the fact that we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who is the source of all beauty and is the source of all love. And being part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we have to have some of these qualities. And as long as we don't realize that, we are confused, we are bewildered. But once we realize that and then act on it, first understanding who we are, Sambandha, and who the Lord is, then applying a process, abhideya, and finally reaching the goal, which is the love of God, prayojan. So continuing with the reading, let's see what Srila Jiva Goswami is saying. Other gopis speak 3 or 4 verses. Sanatana Goswami says 4, Jiva Goswami says 3. We're talking about the cows, but we will be talking tomorrow about the birds, then we'll talk about the rivers, and then the book will present us the clouds. But these experiences of all these entities that increase the desire of everyone to get closer and closer to establish this relationship, intimate relationship of love with the Supreme Lord. And as we hear these pastimes, we can start to develop a desire to come to that point eventually. And the secret is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. From the core of the heart, we utter Krishna's name with great devotion. And as we become more and more purified, it'll be easier. It will be more and more devotional. So, first they describe the cows, which have material affection, which is contrary to the gopis' madhurya bhav. In order to hide their emotions, as previously, the gopis are saying, and we've heard, well, if they love the Supreme Lord, if the wives of the devatas have this conjugal attraction to the Supreme Lord, if the cows have this maternal attraction to the Supreme Lord, if everybody has an innate attraction for the Supreme Lord, the fact that we have this attraction for the Supreme Lord is nothing different, is nothing exceptional. They are trying to hide their most intense emotions. And we know that by reading I was reading the Gopal Champu by Srila Jiva Goswami last night, and all these verses that deal with the song of Krishna's flute, and how there is a backdrop. There is something that is happening, something that is cooking in the backdrop, in the background, which is, why is this going on? Why is Krishna playing his flute? What is he trying to do? Well, he's playing the flute for everyone, but he's mostly playing the flute for his beloved gopis, and particularly for Srimati Radharani, because he tries to increase their love for him through the sound of the flute, and this applies to every living entity that's hearing, and to control them. Krishna wants to control the gopis. The gopis are not easily controlled. We'll see later. But I would recommend for all of you to read this chapter 17 of the Gopal Champu by Srila Jiva Goswami. You will be transported to a different world. The word cha, okay. However, the words are suitable since there is no contradiction with the general affection that the mothers show. So everybody's showing affection. The word cha means even the cows, famous among the people for not being able to distinguish the good from the bad, relish the sound of his flute, which comes from his moon-like mouth, endowed with more nectar than billions of moons. Pretty attractive, isn't it? Sounds pretty good. And then there is a sentence here which is definitive. Krishna is the intense embodiment of the highest bliss. And we put that in our books. We put that on the walls of the house. We put it everywhere. Krishna is the intense embodiment of the highest bliss. And we meditate on that during the day. We write it on the palm of the hand. We look, Krishna is the intense embodiment of the highest bliss. Sma indicates astonishment. They simply stunned, overcome by sadvika bhava, one of these emotions of ecstasy. Govinda indicates their master, because Govinda is the lord of the cows. They touch him with affection. We're talking now about the cows, right? Srila Swami accepts the version Snutta Stana Payaha, which is that the calves have mouthfuls of their mother's milk flowing from their mouths. They are so absorbed that whatever milk is there is just dripping down their mouths. They're stunned. The mothers are stunned also, and we read before, just a few minutes ago, that they bring Krishna onto their laps and in their minds. And after Krishna is situated nicely within the maternal affection of the lap of the cow, then they become stunned. Marvelous. The calves have mouthfuls of their mother's milk, or from some of the calves' mouths, the milk from their mother flows, whereas other calves' mouths have grass in their mouths, which they have been chewing. So not everybody is drinking, everybody is eating somehow. Some of them are drinking the milk, and some of them are eating grass. Their eyes begin to flow with tears, which were previously filling their throats. It happens to us sometimes that we have tears coming. We feel the throats choking, and then eventually, if we let it loose, the tears will come. They embrace in their minds, via their eyes, Govinda, or they offer themselves to Govinda in their minds, since they cannot see him directly, because their eyes are raining with tears. Since their eyes are covered with tears, they see him in their minds. And the gopis again are lamenting. We are most unfortunate, since we cannot even see him. So it's drawing a parallel here about the cows and the calves that are stunned, and they cannot even see Krishna very well because their eyes are full of tears, and the gopis are complaining, they are lamenting, they cannot see Krishna. Why? Draw a parallel with the cows, because their eyes are incessantly pouring out tears of love. Right? So we will see again in the next verses how the gopis are lamenting. And the fact is that Krishna is playing the flute, like I said before, specifically or primarily to attract the love of the gopis, with whom Krishna has already had some sort of a connection. It could have been, we see all these chapters in the Srimad Bhagavatam up to 20, which is the setup of Mother Nature, right? Light of the Bhagavat, where everything is just getting ready to create the most extraordinary and beautiful setting for these pastimes to take place. And it begins in chapter 21, all these pastimes, with the song flute. We've seen how Krishna was killing demons, how Krishna was going to the forest with his friends, how they were having so much fun. And then the weather changes, the stations come and go, and finally fall comes with this very clear, beautiful, brilliant environment filled with bhav, where everybody can experience the highest level of love for the Supreme Lord within their own sthai bhav, which is could be as servants, or could be as friends, or it could be as parents, maternal, paternal affection, or as lovers of the Supreme Lord. So let's see what Sanatana Goswami is saying. I'm not even sure what time it is. Maybe I should stop and see if anybody has any comments, corrections, or questions. But please read these verses and meditate on what they're saying, because they're so purifying and they fill the heart with such devotion. That is the key of the process of devotional service, to increase the devotion that is naturally in our hearts. So if anybody wants to make a comment, make a correction, or talk at realization, ask a question, please do so. We have, 1 minute? Why? Is that the question? Yes. Krishna gave us the, Srila Prabhupada gave us the Krishna book early on, because first of all, he didn't know how long he was going to be present on this earth to come to the canto number 10 to be able to translate these verses. That's one thing. Secondly, because he wanted to for us to develop some samskaras, some impressions in the heart, to be able to aspire for this connection with the Supreme Lord. And and he laced the book with tattva. In other words, the pastimes were intermingled, woven with the philosophical truth underpinning all the pastimes, for us to be able to get the pastimes and understand what is the philosophy behind all these pastimes, and how this philosophy is going to help us connect with this process of devotional service in the right manner. It's not an emotional experience that is devoid of underpinnings of philosophy and tattva. On the contrary, is enriched by this tattva. Very good question. Thank you so much.